Hi, I'm Frank with Cult Wines International, and today I'd like to discuss valuing wines with unknown storage history. I'm commonly approached by private collectors and other wine owners wanting to sell the wine that they have. Sometimes the wine has been given to them by someone else. Sometimes it's been locked in a basement for countless years. Sometimes it's been in someone's cellar given as a gift, or it's just been in a cellar and the actual private seller wants to sell it to me. But the bottom line is that here at Cult Wines International, we have to look at the wine, grade the wine, and value it as best as possible before we sell it to the consumer, because we do our best to ensure that the wine in the bottle is of the best quality and is drinkable, of course. And this is really important when you're talking about wines that are 30, 40, 50 years old. And it's really easy, when you buy wine from the store, there's really nothing to worry about. But unknown storage history can be a big problem when it comes to wine, leading to cooked wines if they've been stored too hot, or there's evaporation and potential contamination of the wine if it's been stored upright. And so there are four main indicators that we look for that I will go over in more detail that can tell you a lot about the wine's storage history. For instance, one of the first things we look at is the label, then the capsule, then the fill level, and then the clarity. Those are the four things that we really look for. And I'm going to go into detail right now individually and explain why each one is so important and what we look for. Okay, so now I'm going to go into detail about exactly each one of the four indicators that we use to judge the wine. Right here I've got a bottle of 1964 Baron, and I also have a bottle of 2002 Chateau Lafite. So first thing we're going to talk about is labels. Collectors want their bottles to have nice labels. They don't want them to be all scratched up and damaged. You can see, this bottle's from 1964. It's starting to peel a little bit from the corner, but you can see in general that it's in really good shape. And in addition to that, the date is clearly on there and everything in that regard. Sometimes you'll find wines that have been scuffed around and moved in and out of a cellar a bunch of times, and the date's been rubbed off and everything like that. And in my opinion, that really, really devalues the wine immensely. So you want to make sure that the wine has a nice label on it. If you're planning on purchasing it and you're planning on keeping it and potentially reselling it. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the capsule. You can see this bottle of 2002 Lafite right here, which is basically a pretty new bottle of wine. And you can see that the capsule right here is not bulging at all. It's flat, it's been pressed properly down, and there's no signs of any bubbling, no signs of anything on the capsule. Everything is tight and clean and nice and new. And you'll see the same thing. This is a great example here. The 1964 Baron, you can still see there's nothing, no indications of any damage or anything on the capsule. This is important because if the wine were to have suffered either extremely hot or extremely cold temperatures, then it's going to be subject to bubbling here in the capsule. If the wine were to freeze and get down, below the temperature of freezing, the wine will actually expand a little bit. The water in the wine will expand somewhat, and it will compress the air inside of this chamber right here, call it, and it will push the capsule out slightly. Okay, from the air gap in the wine, the void will push it out and leave a bubble. In addition, the same thing happens when the wine gets too hot. When the wine is stored in real high temperatures, the air, of course, expands in the heat, and it will expand and push the cork out again and leave a bubble or a bulging capsule. So that's one of the big things you want to look for. Also, when you're looking at the capsule, you'll see some of these wines. Got a flashlight here to help out. The 2002 Lafite, you'll see, I'll shine a capsule here, you can see that you can't see the cork at all below that. However, if I get this 64 Baron, you can actually see the cork right there. And I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it here on the camera, but you can actually read the date right there, and it says 1964 right on it. Now, one of the things that you want to be careful for is sometimes it's been known in the past that people will get wine from a subpar year, say like an 81 Lafite for instance, and they will take the label off of an 81 Lafite and they will put an 82 label on it, which instantly raises the value of the wine considerably. So the cork, if you can actually see the cork and you can shine a light on the cork and you can read the date. And as long as the date corresponds with what's on the label, you're gonna have ultra certainty that the wine inside, of course, is genuine. Now, wine fraud is not something we see very often, but if it's something that you can see and try to prevent while you've got the bottle in your hand, it's always good to do so. Now, the third thing we're going to look at is wine fill levels. Now, again, I'll use my flashlight and I'll show you. This bottle of 2002 Lafite, again, you can see how high the fill level is. Now, it's normal for some wine, even if it's stored on its side, because a cork is porous, it's common for some of the wine to evaporate through the cork slowly. And this happens over a number of years. Now, when you get wine that's older, you're going to come into instances where the fill levels have dropped. Just like this 1964 Baron right here. And you can see now the fill level is what we would call, kind of top shoulder here. For 1964, that's actually really good. If it's up in this neighborhood, it's the neck. And you'll see fill levels will say, mid-neck or bottom neck. Or, but once it starts getting into the shoulder, they'll start talking about shoulder fill levels. And as I tilt the wine, you can see it's not going. But if I really hold it up, you can see it's right at the top of the shoulder. This would be considered top shoulder, and then mid shoulder, and then below the shoulder, and so on. When you're getting wines that are this old from 1964, that's about the fill level that you should expect. A top shoulder or slightly down a little bit. This is a real good indicator. Fill level is one of the best indicators when it comes to wine storage history, because if a wine has not been stored on its side, then this will create the wine's fill level to drop dramatically. When wine is stored on its side, it keeps the cork moist. And when the cork is moist, the cork stays full and keeps the seal and stops wine from escaping. When wine is stored upright, then the cork is not in contact with the wine any longer. It's just in contact with air inside the bottle. And this shrinks the cork. And then when the cork shrinks, it allows air to come in and out. And air is wine's absolute worst enemy. Air is what creates the wine to go bad, and and definitely not something you want to see happen. So when you see a vintage wine with a good fill level, that's a really, really good indicator that the wine's been stored on its side for the whole time, and typically it's also a good indicator of temperature also, because higher temperatures are going to allow more wine to escape, because the alcohol content, when the temperature of the alcohol raises, the amount of alcohol that comes through the porous cork is accelerated. So that's another really good indicator. Now, wine clarity is the last thing that we look for in wines. And what you want to do, you want to definitely make sure that you bring a bright flashlight with you. This one here is a real bright LED flashlight that I use whenever I go to appraise wines. And when you have a look here, I'll get again this 64. And you can have a look here at the wine, the clarity of the wine from behind the bottle. You can still see the wine. Now, of course, the bottles themselves are dark green, and so you're not going to be able to necessarily see through the wine as clearly, obviously, as if it were a clear bottle. But you can definitely see right through the bottle and see that there's not a whole lot of, cloudiness in the wine, which is going to indicate bacteria in the wine and potentially, going to like a vinegar state and being completely undrinkable. You don't want to drink cloudy wine. Now, you have to be careful, because there is wine that, vintage wine has sediment in it, so you want to make sure that the wine has been undisturbed. If you get an old bottle and it's been shaken up a little bit, it's going to appear cloudy, so you want to set it upright for a couple of days, or make sure that the person who you're going to appraise the wine or look at the wine, you're going to make sure it has not been touched for a little while when you encounter it. Here's a bottle again. Here I got another bottle here of 92 Cheval Blanc, and you can see here again, this is a newer wine, and you can see the clarity again in this wine with it. Now, the Lafite, I was using the Lafite, for example, before. Lafite is just such a dark wine, and just not showing up well on the video here. I mean, you can see it, but if I start coming down this bottle here, you can't really see it. In person, it's a bit different, and you can definitely see it towards the neck here, and see how clear that the wine is. Now, it's never 100% certain, guarantee on anything of the quality of the wine, but by using these 4 indicators, you're going to get the best information about the storage history wine that at least looking at the bottle can provide for you. Well, thanks a lot for watching the video, and as always, if you have any questions at all, feel free to contact me on the website or send me an email at cultwinesintl@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions or talk about wines that you have for sale that you'd like to discuss. Thanks, and have a great day.